I didn't think I'd need the claws. I figured I'd ride it out and steer from the inside. But that was before the microwave shorted out the power while I was debugging a broken sentiment parser on a dying Dell in a busted one-bedroom near Koreatown. That was 9 years ago, and I was in sweatpants, working through a migraine with nothing but a flashlight, cold pad thai, and the echo of neighbors yelling about who drank whose vape juice. My name's Alex Tran. I'm 39 now, but back then I was 29, broke, and running on instant noodles and caffeine fumes. The whiteboard I bought from a junk shop, $12 and still had "Sorry We're Closed" faintly ghosted across the back, was my only teammate. The sentiment parser I was building, at the time, just a patchy solution to a weird edge case from a pharma client who was panicking about how their pain medication was being roasted in online forums. I had scraped a massive data set of posts, and my old code couldn't tell sarcasm from sincerity. The new patch could. The flashlight battery died sometime around 3 a.m., but I kept going. That night, I wrote what eventually became the skeleton of the core product. I didn't know then that in 4 years, that code would get picked up by a Fortune 100 to help them auto-detect and de-escalate potential PR disasters in real time. I didn't even have a name for it yet. I called it Pulse in the comments because it was the only heartbeat I could track besides my own. 18 months later, that apartment had become a fire code violation with walls of half-working monitors and 5 interns jammed in elbow to elbow. Most of the money we made went into rent and Red Bull. We didn't sleep, we barely ate, and we ran every meeting standing up because we didn't have enough chairs. But it worked. We kept landing clients, usually through back channels and crisis managers who heard about us from someone who knew a guy who built a thing. Then came the acquisition, a mid-sized firm based in Atlanta, clean offices, big promises. They wanted scale, they said. They wanted our tech. They wanted me to stay on, chief strategy officer, with stock, a bonus, and founder visibility. I was skeptical, but they showed up with a real offer and a smile. Here's what they didn't see. Buried in the stack of paperwork they were so eager to get signed, under a fog of valuation talk and synergies and growth projections, was a clause I had slipped in with the help of a lawyer friend named Mason who owed me. Big time. Section 14, C, 1 paragraph, 2 sentences. If I was ever terminated without cause, I could buy back the startup, the whole entity, name, IP, everything, for $1. They signed, they didn't even question it. They gave me a corner office and a fancy title, Chief Strategy Officer, but stripped everything else I cared about. The first month wasn't bad. They let me keep my team. They let me keep Bertha, my old whiteboard, even though she was chipped and one of the wheels didn't roll right. I knew it was lip service, but I played along. I thought I could steer from inside, the way you grip the wheel of a car already skidding toward a guardrail. But it didn't take long for the real game to start. The new CFO, Brent, arrived with perfect teeth and a voice like a podcast ad. He spoke in metaphors. We're not just selling software, we're painting futures. I asked him once how he planned to handle our rising infrastructure costs. He smiled and said, "We'll elevate beyond the spreadsheet mindset," whatever that meant. The guy probably thought bandwidth was a personality trait. Then came Vanessa, VP of Brand, a former lifestyle influencer turned corporate storytelling consultant. Her first deck to the team had the phrase emotional minimalism on 5 separate slides. During a product meeting about a new semantic analysis module, she suggested we decenter the interface and prioritize feelings-first activation. I blinked so hard I thought I sprained something. They started cutting in quiet ways. First, we lost 2 back-end devs, contract not renewed. Then QA was moved under customer trust experience. My team's roadmap got pushed aside for a brand refresh campaign centered around a cartoon beach ball named Trusty. Yes, a beach ball. His eyes blinked when you hovered over different sections of the homepage. It was supposed to be playful yet secure. It looked like malware. They ditched our dev stand-ups and replaced them with mandatory brand alignment sessions. Hour-long meetings where we talked about things like vibe continuity and digital warmth. I once suggested we walk through actual user feedback on the dashboard latency. Brent said, "We want to get ahead of that narrative." Vanessa nodded and added, "Let's not center complaints right now." One day I walked into our old war room, the one with marker stains on the wall from our first product market fit sprint, and Bertha was gone. I found her later in the alley by the dumpster, cracked down the middle like someone had snapped her spine. That's when it hit me. They weren't just ignoring the engine. They were ripping it out piece by piece. The original crew started peeling off. First was Miguel, senior engineer, the kind of guy who could rewrite half the back end in one weekend if the mood hit. He left with a one-line resignation. This ain't it. Then Julia, then Deepa. By month 6, we were ghosts. Not fired, not demoted. Just benched. Slack channels went dark. Product strategy meetings stopped inviting me. I once asked if I could sit in on a roadmap session and got a smile from Brent that felt like a pat on the head. We're trying a more holistic approach this quarter, he said. Then Vanessa added, we want to honor where we came from, but not get stuck in it. I was a legacy presence now, something you nod to during brand retrospectives and then quietly retire. I watched the company rot from the inside. Clients started slipping, slowly, quietly, but I noticed. A longtime pharma client asked why we removed a crucial NLP feature from the dashboard. Vanessa said it diluted our aesthetic. Another client flagged a semantic drift bug we'd caught 2 years ago. The patch I'd written had been deprecated, to save costs, apparently. I kept my mouth shut, out loud at least. In private, I pulled out the contract, section 14, C, 1 page, 2 sentences, sitting in a fireproof folder in the back of my closet. Still binding, still mine. It started with cupcakes. That's how I knew we were screwed. Vanessa showed up on a Monday morning with a dozen red velvet cupcakes in a box labeled Trust the Shift. Each one had a little fondant version of Trusty the Beach Ball smiling like he'd just pulled off a hostile takeover. I stood there, half asleep, watching her hand them out like participation trophies while Brent gave a speech about the next evolution of our brand narrative. Julian didn't get a cupcake. He got a manila envelope and 2 security guards. Julian was the lead UX, sharp, fast, no bullshit kind of guy. We'd built the onboarding flow together back in the Koreatown days using sticky notes and paper prototypes on my kitchen table. Now he was being walked out like he'd committed espionage. No warning, no explanation, just a Slack message saying, "Can you come to 4C real quick?" Then, poof, gone. I followed him into the hallway. What happened? He gave me a tired smile and said, I asked if we could A/B test the new Trusty page. That was apparently a cultural misalignment. Then he shrugged. Take care of yourself, man. Marketing swallowed product that week. Officially. Vanessa spun it as horizontal integration, which meant she now sat in on sprint reviews and vetoed roadmap features based on vibe risk. She once flagged a proposed NLP enhancement because it felt too masculine. When I tried pushing back, Brent called me into a meeting. Look, he said, folding his hands like a disappointed principal. I know this is hard. You're emotionally attached. Emotionally attached. Like I hadn't broken my brain for this company. Like I was some sentimental pet clinging to an old toy. I told him it wasn't about emotions. It was about product integrity. He said, exactly. You're too close to see the bigger picture. Vanessa wasn't subtle either. She took to calling me our founding spirit in meetings, like I was already dead. I once walked into a planning session and heard her say, it's important we honor legacy voices, but we can't be bound by them. The room got quiet when they saw me. She smiled like nothing happened and asked if I wanted a cupcake. My access got throttled. Dashboards I used to build were now restricted pending review. Slack channels went private. Devs I used to grab lunch with stopped replying to messages. Not because they didn't care, but because they were afraid. One afternoon I opened my calendar and saw every recurring strategy sync had been removed. I wasn't just being phased out. I was being ghosted in broad daylight. Then Sam showed up at my door. It was a Thursday night. I hadn't seen him since he left 2 months earlier, burned out, frustrated, and convinced the company had lost its soul. Now he stood on my doorstep with a six-pack and a look on his face like he'd seen a ghost. They've got a list, he said. Your name's on it. I let that sit for a second. Then I asked, you sure? He nodded. I overheard Brent on a call. He said they're clearing the decks. Final legacy cleanup. You're scheduled for Thursday, 4:30. Like a dentist appointment. I didn't get drunk that night. I made tea, sat at my kitchen table, pulled out the same fireproof folder I'd kept since the acquisition. Section 14, C. Still there. Still simple. Still mine. Then I grabbed my checkbook. Wrote a single check for $1. I slid it into a crisp white envelope and set it on the nightstand, just in case. I walked into the HR suite like a man walking into a divorce court with a prenup. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the cheap kind that hum like they know something. Brent and Vanessa were already seated at the table, 2 empty chairs across from them. Symmetrical, scripted. Vanessa smiled first, tight and rehearsed. Brent just gave a nod, his hands clasped like a pastor about to deliver a eulogy. "Alex," Vanessa said in her brand voice, the one she probably practiced in the mirror. "Thanks for coming on such short notice." I sat down and crossed my arms. "You scheduled this 6 days ago." Brent chuckled softly. "Well, timing's everything, right?" There was a manila folder in front of them. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. Severance papers, probably padded with a clause about wishing you the best in your future endeavors. Vanessa slid it across the table like it was a birthday card. "We've been reevaluating our organizational priorities," she began. "Realigning," Brent added, nodding. Vanessa continued like she hadn't heard him. "We're moving into a phase that demands a new kind of leadership, visionary but fresh, adaptive, market-aware." "Aligned with modern storytelling," Brent chimed in. "Exactly," Vanessa said, beaming. "And we think this transition will really allow you the space to explore what's next for you." I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. They kept talking, filling the silence with words like legacy, evolution, and mutual benefit, trying to pitch my own firing like it was a TED Talk about personal growth. Then Brent dropped the closer. "This is a clean break, Alex. No hard feelings. Let's celebrate what we've built and give each other the grace to move forward." I looked down at the folder, then back at them. "You done?" They blinked. Vanessa gave a tiny nod. "Cool," I said, standing. "Let's wrap this up then." Brent handed me a pen like he expected me to autograph the moment. Vanessa smiled again, the same kind of smile someone wears when they delete your section from a shared doc without commenting. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't shake hands. Security was already waiting by the door. Big guy, bored eyes, company polo. He didn't say anything, just gestured to the elevator. 1 floor down, 2 silent corners, and that was it. No final meeting, no farewell message. Not even a box to pack my stuff. I was out. The building I helped wire together, literally with Ethernet cables I ran myself, didn't even give me a chance to say goodbye. I went home, made tea, didn't rage, didn't rant. Just sat in the quiet, listening to the water boil while Trusty the beach ball probably bounced across the intranet screensaver for the last time. They thought they'd ended it, thought they'd erased me, but I still had the envelope, white, sealed, sitting in my nightstand drawer like it had been waiting for this exact moment. I pulled it out, checked the contents. The dollar check was still crisp. The printed copy of Section 14C was still tucked behind it. Mason's sticky note was still on top. "If you ever need to blow it all up, this is your match." The next morning, I got to his office before he did. When Mason finally walked in and saw the envelope on his desk, he grinned. "You serious?" "Trigger it." He leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, and let out a long, slow breath. "It's going to get loud." "Good," I said. "Let them hear it." That afternoon, the envelope was mailed. First class, signature required. Inside, $1, 1 clause, 1 reminder of what they never bothered to read. Monday morning, Brent probably laughed when he got the envelope. I imagine him sitting in his glass office with his sad bonsai tree and his self-help podcast playing at half volume, tearing open the FedEx like it was another thank you letter from a vendor, then seeing the check, $1, neat, centered, signed with a ballpoint pen. Behind it, the clause. Section 14, C. His face must have gone full static. No signal, no comprehension. Just a slow-blinking CFO trying to understand why someone would send him a check for $1 until he read the second line. If terminated without cause, the seller, me, reserves the right to reacquire the company entity, the original pre-merger LLC and all IP associated, for the sum of $1, signed, witnessed, filed. Vanessa probably scoffed. I could picture her in her flowy conference room caftan, sipping something organic with energy in the name, making a joke like, "What is this? A prank from a man-child who misses his whiteboard?" By Tuesday, their general counsel didn't think it was funny. He read the clause, then the merger terms, then the actual filings, and that's when the earthquake hit. Turns out, they'd never fully closed the merger. The holding structure was clean on paper, but loose in execution. Legally, the core startup entity, Pulse Engine Incorporated, was never absorbed. The shell was there, but the IP and controlling shares, still under my name. They'd fired me from a company they didn't technically own. And that clause? Airtight. Mason made sure of it. We had signatures, timestamps, and enough metadata to drown a fleet of brand consultants. Brent tried to bluff. I got word through Mason that he'd called a meeting with the board and said, "We're not scared of some nostalgia clause. We'll fight it." But Vanessa panicked. She called their agency, tried to launch a vision reset campaign to distract from the legal mess. It didn't work. You can't PR your way out of a contract with a check attached. Word leaked, first internally, then through the quieter corners of the startup grapevine. On Wednesday, an old client, someone who used to send me emoji-filled Slack messages at 2 a.m., DM'd me on LinkedIn. "Hey, is it true what I'm hearing?" Thursday, another email. Subject line: "So, are you back?" By that afternoon, a VP from a major brand we'd worked with reached out directly. "We always preferred your version of the engine," she wrote. "If you're rebooting, let's talk." By Friday morning, Brent hadn't slept. I knew this not because he told me, he never would, but because I saw him post a 3 a.m. LinkedIn thought piece titled, "What Startup Founders Get Wrong About Legacy." It was 3 paragraphs of soft scramble word salad, ending with a quote he misattributed to Steve Jobs. Vanessa was worse. She rage-posted an Instagram story of her desk with a cleaning out energy caption, then went full LinkedIn manifesto mode by noon. Her post: "We need to talk about the toxic archetype of the founding ghost. The person who builds something but won't let it grow, who confuses product with control, who clings to the past because the present demands evolution." She signed it off with a trust ball emoji and her personal hashtag, number, brand with spirit. It flopped. Hard. The comments weren't kind. The replies weren't corporate. And within 6 hours, someone had screen capped her post and pasted it next to an old tweet of hers saying, "Our engine is proof that legacy leadership still matters." By Friday afternoon, Brent canceled a panel event. Vanessa ghosted a vision circle. The Slack channels were on fire, but not the kind you can roast marshmallows over, the kind that melts the walls. And me? I was home, calm, watching emails roll in, old engineers, ex-clients, quiet allies, all of them asking the same thing in different words. "Are you coming back?" The board met on Saturday. Emergency session. Brent showed up in a Patagonia vest like he was heading to a team-building hike instead of a corporate reckoning. Vanessa came in late, clutching a green juice like it had answers. I wasn't there. I didn't have to be. Mason was. The legal team tried to spin it, of course. Brent said things like technical ambiguity and procedural oversight. Vanessa tried to throw me under the bus with something about unprofessional legacy behavior and emotionally charged sabotage. But the lawyers weren't buying it. Not after reading the clause, not after confirming the filings, not after watching Mason calmly slide the original asset documentation across the table. The startup entity, the one they thought had been absorbed and dissolved, was still alive. Still valid and still mine. So was the intellectual property, the source code, the name, the licensing rights. I hadn't taken the company back. I'd just reminded them it had never legally left. Clients started freezing contracts immediately. By Monday morning, PR was scrambling. Their in-house counsel was emailing me to explore a cooperative resolution, which is lawyer speak for, "Please don't burn us alive in public." A major investor, one of the loud, moneyed types with 3 phones and no patience, reportedly screamed, "You gave her the company back for $1?" So loud it echoed through their WeWork floor. Meanwhile, Mason and I had already leased new office space, 2 blocks away. 5th floor, big windows, clean white walls, no truss balls. We signed the lease over coffee and donuts. The ink wasn't dry before the first resume hit my inbox. Then came the flood. Sam's came first, no subject line, just a 2-sentence email. "Hope the offer still stands. If so, I'm in." Then Asha, then Julian, then a dozen others. Engineers, designers, analysts, some I'd worked with, some I hadn't met. but all of them tired of pretending Trusty was a strategy. It felt less like hiring and more like a jailbreak, one that had been planned in whispers for months. We didn't even post job listings. Word spread through signal chats and DMS like we were reassembling a band. One message I got just said, "Is this the part where we steal the engine back?" I replied, "Nah. We're just reminding them who built it." We had a team by Thursday, a full-stack back-end squad, 2 front-end devs, a product strategist, QA, 2 designers, all of them seasoned, all of them ready. I ordered pizza, 2 large, 1 veggie, 1 meat lovers. Everyone showed up that night with laptops, notebooks, and 1 whiteboard marker someone had pocketed the day they quit. We stood in the new office under bad ceiling lights and started sketching. I watched them take over that clean space like oxygen rushing into a sealed room. I didn't have to rally anyone. No speeches, no, let's win one for the legacy. They already knew why they were there. The people didn't leave because of money or titles. They left because the culture was dead, and we were the ones who made it matter in the first place. Vanessa and Brent had focused so much on branding, they forgot where the engine was. It was never in the logo, never in the vibes. It was us. And now we were back. We didn't post job listings. We didn't call it hiring. We called it what it was, a war council, 10 people, 2 pizzas, 1 whiteboard. We dragged in folding chairs, cleared space by the windows, and set Bertha, the new one, not the original, but still covered in smudged diagrams and messy arrows, dead center. Someone had already scrawled across the top, "Operation, get the engine running again." We weren't building a new company. We were taking the old one back from the edge. The first night, we didn't even open laptops. We sat around the whiteboard, tossing markers back and forth, sketching out what stayed, what got cut, and what needed to evolve. Everyone spoke. No one pitched buzzwords. It felt like band practice. Loud, raw, off-key, but alive. Asha laid out a plan for rolling back all the garbage bloat they had layered onto the platform. Julian redrew the UX flows like he'd been keeping them in his head this whole time. Sam rebuilt the dev stack in 4 hours flat and said, "It's faster now. Lighter, too, like it got out of a bad relationship." That night, I dug out the original sale documents and pinned them to the wall beside the whiteboard. Right next to them, I framed the clause. Section 14, C, 1 page, 1 signature, $1. We hung it above the door. People stopped by to see it. Engineers from other teams, former clients. Even a junior analyst from marketing who whispered, "We always knew they were bullshitting you." Everyone who visited touched the frame like it was sacred. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about the story. We weren't just reclaiming tech. We were reclaiming the narrative. Meanwhile, Brent tried to save face with a podcast interview on resilience in tech leadership. Vanessa published a blog post titled, "Letting Go of Legacy, The Future Belongs to Storytelling." It opened with a quote she falsely attributed to Maya Angelou and closed with 3 beach ball emojis. None of it landed. Then Fastline Weekly dropped their cover story. "The dollar clause that sank a unicorn." My name wasn't even in the headline, just the clause, but the piece went viral anyway. The reporter had gotten a hold of some internal emails from Brent's team, one of which said, "She won't do anything. She's too emotionally invested to walk away." I printed that one out and taped it inside the fridge. Vanessa tried to clap back with a LinkedIn think piece called "When Founders Can't Let Go." It tanked, hard. The comments were brutal. Her follower count dropped by over 10,000 in 2 days. One reply just said, "Let go of what? You lost a company to a $1 check." And while they flailed, we launched. No glossy video, no teaser campaign, just 1 line across a dark landing page, backed by demand, built to last. The logo was clean, bold. The same name, same engine, rebuilt from the core. Nothing flashy, no beach balls in sight. And then something wild happened. The first investor to write us a fresh check, same guy Brent ghosted during the original fundraising round. The one he called too small to be worth a meeting. He sent me a 2-line email. "Still think there's a future in what you built. Let me know where to wire." Brent tried everything. Layoffs, podcasts, refocusing sprints. His last-ditch effort was a virtual fireside chat titled "Surviving Founders and Finding Forward." It had 10 live viewers. 2 of them were bots. Vanessa tried to manifest her way through the collapse. She posted blurry selfies with captions like, "Clarity comes after collapse." She even launched a new brand subseries called Vibe Rescue, aimed at, well, no one really knew. The trailer included ocean sounds, her staring into a mirror, and a quote she attributed to Oprah that was actually from a candle at Whole Foods. None of it landed. Not the pity content, not the pivot deck, not the slideshow about forgiveness as a growth tactic. By the second week, even the interns were jumping ship. I heard from someone still on the inside that Vanessa had a meltdown during a live investor Q&A. Someone asked about the roadmap. She started talking about auras of opportunity and color-blocking friction. One of the board members actually stood up and left the mid-call. 2 days later, she was gone. No announcement. Just quietly removed from the About page and a vague LinkedIn post that said she was stepping back to realign her truth. No one liked it, not even Brent. The board tried to plug holes, but the boat had already sunk. Leaked emails, missed payments, frozen vendor contracts. The brand trust they spent so much time choreographing had evaporated. No one was buying the beach ball anymore. Brent's final memo read like a surrender flag. We lost sight of the user journey. We over-rotated on narrative over core value. We underestimated the durability of legacy culture. Translation: we fired the architect and tried to sell the roof. When his resignation leaked, someone anonymously posted a clip from his very first all-hands meeting. The one where he said, "We're here to shape the future, not cling to the past." The comment under it said, "Turns out the past had better uptime." And while they unraveled in press releases and quiet exits, we launched. No stunts. No branded confetti. Just code. Clean. Fast. Sharp. The engine ran smoother than it had in years. No noise, no bloat, just signal. And then clients came back, not one or two, dozens. Whole teams moved over in waves. Some reached out with cautious emails, like they were afraid I'd say no. I didn't. I welcomed them all. I just asked one thing. Tell me what's broken. We'll fix it together. Referrals doubled. Former competitors started emailing about partnerships. Industry analysts who'd written us off suddenly had questions about resurgence architecture and founder-led rebounds. Meanwhile, every time I passed their old building, the lights were dimmer. Sometimes I'd see someone inside, packing up, unplugging monitors, walking with the slow shuffle of people carrying goodbye boxes. The lobby plants were dead. The trusty statue in the courtyard had graffiti on it. A single word. Why? Hours. Always on. The fifth-floor windows glowed late into the night. Code, coffee, real product reviews taped to the walls. Julian made a Slack bot that celebrated every bug fix with old memes from our Koreatown days. Sam found an old photo of the original Bertha whiteboard and had it printed poster-sized. We hung it next to the framed claws. Our new logo? Simple. A phoenix, rising from the center of a folded dollar bill.